So, welcome back to the 1760 sessions where we talk to founders building systems and impact. As you all know, I'm Harry Thornbury from 1760 Strategic AI. And today I'm joined by the fabulous Renee Belcombe, founder and CEO of Scroll.care. It's a platform she calls, let's say, the Amazon of care services. Renee spent 22 years in tech as a CEO in Silicon Valley before pivoting into healthcare advocacy, where she spent the last 18 years fighting for patients caught in a system she says was never designed to take care of them. She's a certified community health worker, certified senior advisor, serves an, apologies for the pronunciation here, but the Kahit Norcal board, and
Okay.
hosts two podcasts herself, the See Differently Project and the Scroll Crowd Revolution. Bit of a lengthy intro, but Renee, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to see you again, and I'm excited to be in front of your audience. So thank you for having me.
No worries at all. It's our pleasure. So how I want to kick off with is, look, you spent 22 years in tech, running companies in Silicon Valley, back when nobody even knew really what tech was. Uh, what made you walk away from that world and into healthcare advocacy?
Yeah. Great question. We, my company was not a large company by the standards of Silicon Valley. We were a small privately owned company, doing about 65 million a year, which is back in those days was, respectable, right? We had locations in the San Jose Bay Area, Silicon Valley, and a location in Southern California and one in Puerto Rico. But at the time, we were seeing a lot of industry moving to China, and we started investigating opening a division in Shenzhen, China. So I started traveling there quite a lot, and at the time, I had two small children, 7 and 8 years old, and found myself away from home a few weeks a month. And fortunately, my mother lived with us and she was their primary caregiver. So they were well cared for. But my experience in traveling back and forth left for a lot of contemplation about kind of the world events and what was going on in the world. And honestly, Harry, there was a point in time where what I was seeing in China, was we were giving our technology to a communist government, which didn't sit well for me. I couldn't really understand it. And more importantly, there was a lot of like westernized smoke and mirrors in the city in Shenzhen, but out where the manufacturing was being done was literally very rural and lots of young children working in these factories and people living, in oppression, in my opinion. So, you're on a plane 13, 14 hours, and all of that is playing through your mind. And I'm recognizing the sacrifice that I'm making for an industry that is slipping away that I don't want to support in this other environment. So I decided to pull back and um, come out of the executive level that I was in and maybe buy a small company and start doing my own work, with my own company in outside of Silicon Valley. So I hired a business manager and bought a small business in Curry County, Oregon, which is right on the coast, spectacular, oversees the ocean. It's a beautiful uh, uh, city, very actually a small town, small community overseeing the Pacific Ocean. And we bought this business. We, did all the due diligence on the business and went through that process. And we moved there the Friday before 9/11. So, of course, on that Tuesday, 9/11 happened. And I didn't get into the office until Thursday. So, by the time I got to the office, when I got there, I discovered that it was a shell company and I had been basically built out of $5.5 million. So I found myself in this crazy spot, and I can talk about it today, this many years later, and look through that lens and recognize that it was a stepping stone to the next big part of my life. But at the time, it was pretty devastating. And so, but my ego was involved, and I felt like I know enough about business, I know enough about electronics in Silicon Valley that I can take this shell company and turn it into something. And I still had quite a lot of assets in the Silicon Valley that I could pull off of, right? So I started doing that, pulling assets, building a company, starting from scratch and just really, trying to reestablish a certain footing in this shell company. And then the dot-com bust happened and the mortgage industry flipped upside down. So this was about 3 years later. And, I ended up having to file bankruptcy. And so when that occurred, by then my kids were pretty well entrenched in this new community we moved to, and I've always been a person that could compartmentalize, right? So I knew the season with my kids was pretty short, right? At this point they're almost out of the house, they're halfway out, right? So I knew that I could do whatever I needed to do to spend that time and put that time and that energy and that investment with them. So I went about getting myself a job, and the first job I got was in the adult care industry. And once a CEO, always a CEO, right? So I was looking at this industry through this lens, and I was like, wow, we thought Silicon Valley was the wild, wild west. This is the wild, wild west,
Yeah.
right? Like, we were spinning the globe in Silicon Valley as young people, not knowing what we were doing. But now I'm in a big grown-up person's game in the adult care industry, and it is a mess. I mean, a mess.
Yeah, big time.
Mhm. Very unregulated, very unchartered. And I was just staggered by that, to be honest with you. And in no time, I, started another company because I'm, sick that way, and was doing healthcare advocacy work in the community. And within 5 years, I had 39 advocates working in 5 counties in Southwest Oregon, and really had entrenched myself in this new industry, and started down the mission that we're going to change that. We're going to make it better. It has to get better. It's crazy the way it was. So that's, how that evolved.
That is one hell of a story. I have to tell you, Renee, you've really been through it all, starting with the tech company, going over to China, probably losing family time, to the startup, which didn't work out because of 9/11. And I'm very sorry to hear that. But these are all, I can imagine, huge life lessons that you learned to get you where you are today.
Yeah, yeah. It's what happens, and for the young people, and maybe even for some of the older people listening to us today, right? I think life cues us, right? And opportunity will come at us, and some of it's risk. But we won't go through life unscathed. We know that there will be some scathing somewhere along the line. And if you can just take that experience and turn it into the next big thing, then you're off to the races every time, right? So that's just been my approach, is just getting through it, having endurance, and what is this leading me to?
And you strike me as the kind of person that probably wakes up with a smile on your face and always glass half full optimism. And that will only pay off in your favor as you continue to move forward.
Thank you. Yeah, and I am. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I love that hour of the day because it's such a peaceful time, and it really is a time to center yourself and really, you know, set purpose for your day. And I mean, how many people get up and say, "I'm going to set a purpose for my day," and be in a bad mood?
Yeah, never, never.
Right? Now it doesn't mean that the day is always great because a lot of
Yeah.
times it's not. But I think if you can reflect back to whatever your purpose was for the day, you can pull yourself through those situations pretty rapidly, pretty quickly, and again, relatively painlessly.
I think I need to take a leaf out of your book. The problem with our generation, well, my generation, is the lure of social media first thing when you wake up. But having that hour at probably 4 a.m., which might be a bit early for me, enough time to have some gratitude as well, set
Yeah,
up the day, and crack on with things. So watch
yeah,
this space. You could see me online at, well, it would be your 4 a.m., but I might be online at 4 a.m. from now on.
yeah. I set my phone. I have an alarm on my phone, and I will not pick up my phone until that alarm goes off.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I just set it aside, and that gives me a good hour, hour and a half again to get centered, to focus, to have some gratitude, to look at my day and start planning kind of what my day is going to look like. And then without fail, that alarm will go off and it's like bing, back to the world. So
Yeah. So next, I'd love to dive into what we were speaking about quite largely last time is the treatment system. And you just said it's more of a mess than the state of Silicon Valley's in. But you said that American medicine isn't really, it's not a care system, it's more of a treatment system. Um, can you just explain for the listeners what you mean by that distinction and why does it matter?
Yes, and thank you for that question. I'm very passionate um, about people understanding what medicine really is, and in the United States, Western medicine is very much a business of care, right? And a business of treatment. So in my mind, I separate treatment as, you have an ailment and they're gonna treat it with a band-aid or whatever that is, an operation or whatever that is. And that's a there's a cost in exchange there, right? You're gonna pay for a service. So it's kind of a pay to play service, right? Care, on the other hand, is where you're going to heal and where you're going to be able to find some respite and be able to bring yourself back to a place as close to wholeness as you possibly can. And you will not find that in a hospital. You're not going to get that in a Western hospital in the United States. You're going to go in, they're going to ask you what's wrong. If you have 10 things, they're going to say, can you zero in on one? Because we're only here to deal with one, right? And then they're going to treat that. They're going to charge you to treat that, and then they're going to send you home, right? If you so now if you're in a care environment is going to say, tell me everything that's wrong with you, and let's look at the whole person and make some decisions on behalf of the whole person, right? So that's really the distinction for me between care and treatment.
And
Um,
we spoke about the business of care. That's understanding how money moves through healthcare. What do most patients not understand about how they're being monetized? Really?
Well, listen, it's a crazy, again, unregulated. It's supposed to be regulated, but unmanaged and unregulated environment, right? So you have a medical system in the United States that's establishing what they refer to as fixed cost of care. And we're supposed to have transparency of what the cost of treatment is, but we don't have that. Nobody follows that regulation, right? And then and then you go home, you get a bill that has this coding system on it. You don't even know what the coding system is, and you don't even know what you're paying for. And chances are you're paying 5, 10x, sometimes 100 times what the cost of that procedure actually should be. Or you're paying for a procedure you didn't even get, and you don't know it because you don't know what the code means. So, one of the things that I try to tell people is use AI, run those bills through AI, and have AI tell you what you're paying for. And by the way, don't be shy. Here's what I do in advocacy. Number one, don't be shy to call them and say, I'm not paying this much for this phone. Like we need to negotiate this. And all of them will negotiate with you if you ask.
Yeah,
But
I just find it crazy coming from the UK healthcare system, which is very different. And then who's essentially plucking these numbers and saying this is what you owe? Do they know that's an inflated figure, or are they being passed that number by someone else?
no, they know. Most, almost 100% of all of the big care treatment facilities in the United States are run by business administrators. They are not run by doctors. So the people who probably don't know is actually the attending physician or the doctor that's treating you. But believe me, the hospital administrators and the billing administrators know exactly what they're billing you for, and they also know whether or not that's appropriate to bill you for that. But in most cases, they're counting on the fact that people are going to get a bill and they're going to pay a bill, or the bill is going to be submitted to their insurance company and the insurance company is going to pay the bill. If you don't call your insurance company and say, hey, they're billing me for, you know, uh, colonoscopy and I didn't get a colonoscopy, they would have no idea. So it's really, really important. And
Yeah.
by the way, you're going to pay 20% of that charge, right? But it's really important to make certain that you're looking at those bills and fighting those bills. I literally, before we came on the air, I literally was on the phone with an attorney in New York for a client, and they have a $95,000 bill that we believe we can get down to $35,000.
That's
So
$60,000 is a lot of money. Did they reach out to you or were they found organically?
so this was a client that was they found me through their insurance broker. And the insurance broker asked us to get involved, and we did. And I got an attorney involved. They're out of Rochester, New York. And I got an attorney involved because I knew from the interviews that I was doing that my client was being billed for for services they never received, right? For care they never received. So here's an example. They were being billed for clearing a trach 4 times a day, and the trach wasn't even being cleared 4 times a week, right? So they're being itemized, these itemized bills of these services that they weren't even receiving. So I got a lawyer involved and we started negotiating with
Yeah.
the facility to bring the charges down.
I think it's crazy. Just some people might not even think that is this true that some people might not think that they can argue the point on this bill and just assume this is what they have to pay.
Right, for sure. In the United States, one of the things that most people don't understand, our seniors, we have a generation here that my mother was one of these people that they take so much pride in their FICO score, right? Their credit score. And, and to me, you get to a certain age, like I used to say this to my mother, why do you care what your credit score is? What are you going to buy?
Yeah.
Right. But she was going to go to the grave with a perfect credit score. And by the way, she did. But
Amazing.
she would get a pink envelope and she would lose her mind, like, oh my God, I need to pay this. And it's like, wait, mom, what are you paying for? Like,
Yeah.
you didn't even get that. Like, well, I'd rather pay it than have them send me into collections. And I'm like, why do you care? Right? Why do you care? And there's this whole generation, Harry, that lives that way in America, right? They're under the threat of, oh my God, what if I have a negative credit score? That they're not even buying anything, right? So it doesn't even matter. However, um, you know, in the United States, if someone wants to put you in a collections for a medical bill, they cannot collect against your social security. It's against the law. But
Okay.
and these people are on fixed income, so they're writing these checks, right? Thinking, well, they're going to put me in collections and take my money. And it's like, well, your only income is social security. They can't take that at all, right? So, but most people have no idea. None.
It's a
They
huge there's a huge education piece involved from your guys' end then as well.
Yeah, and the collections people call and they do fear mongering, right? And they tell people, they're going to end up homeless and blah, 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 right? And it's like, no, none of that is true. None of that is true. And, but again, a lot of unregulated behaviors in the care industry across the board. You know, I'll give you another example. I am a professional healthcare advocate. My team are all healthcare advocates, right? In the state of California, you don't have to be licensed to be a healthcare advocate here. Now, as a healthcare advocate, I can manage your medications.
Yeah.
I can assist you in your medical appointments. I can sit with you in your medical appointments, any of that. Also, in California, if I'm an in home care person, right? Number one, I have to be licensed, but number two, I cannot touch your medication. So if you're at home and you're paying for in-home care, to the tune of $35, $40 an hour, that person cannot touch your meds, right? They're not supposed to touch your medication. I, on the other hand, can, and I'm an unregulated service. Now go figure that.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense, right?
Any sense.
Yeah. But in the state of Oregon, healthcare advocacy is a licensed and regulated service. So every state has their own systems,
Yeah.
and it's kind of all over the place, to be honest with you.
And what states are you operating in mainly at the moment?
I'm in California, but I have clients in Arizona, New York, New Mexico, Washington State. So I have clients pretty much spread all over the place, Texas.
Amazing. So
Yeah.
that leads me into talk about Scroll.care then. So essentially calling it the Amazon of care services. It's a big vision. And can you just walk us through what that actually looks like for a family trying to find care?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. So Scroll, I Uh, back in the day, I worked, you won't remember because you're too young, but I worked on a project called Palm Pilot. Do you remember the Palm
I
Pilot?
do remember the Palm Pilot. I remember my dad having a Palm Pilot.
Kind of the first PDA, right? And everybody thought it was
I
cool.
remember playing with it and for ages and being like, this is absolutely rubbish. That has nothing that I can play with on here.
Yeah, it didn't have any gaming, right? But
No, nothing. Remember him bringing it home. He was really chuffed and showing it off. And then me grabbing it, getting the pen out and being like, okay, this is nothing that I can do on it.
yeah, no, no. But it was it was kind of the first introduction to consumer goods, right? At a business level.
Yeah.
And so, as I left Silicon Valley and I spent years in healthcare advocacy, my mind kept going back to how do I, how do I provide a solution to everyone that's not as expensive as one-on-one care. My one-on-one care services is expensive, right? It's 100 between 100 and $150 an hour, and most people just don't have that kind of money, right? So how do I teach you what I know and teach you how to be a healthcare advocate? So of course my brain went right back to tech, and it went right back to, the Palm Pilot, and the answer to so many problems are sitting right here, right? So I started down the path of having an app designed that would allow you to speak into the app. Scroll speaks 14 languages, and I'm sorry. Do you want me to close it?
Sorry.
Can you hear this animal?
Oh, there's another dog my end barking as well, so I muted myself.
Oh, okay. Can you clear
No,
that up?
no, no. I muted myself because I can hear a dog on my side as well.
Oh
Yeah,
God. Okay. Hold, hold on.
no worries.
Anyway,
Sorry.
so I started on the journey of having this app developed. I wanted it to be multilingual and multicultural because let's assume that care in the UK looks different than care in the US, right? And different cultures, different religions have different care expectations. So today with Scroll, you can speak into it and you can start asking for I'll give you a scenario. I'm going to have knee replacement surgery.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to have, can you tell me what my post op care should look like? And the app starts writing a care plan for you on the services you may need. It'll ask you a series of questions and the services you may need for recovery, right? And then it'll start sending you to vetted providers within your geography that you can reach out to and speak to. Now we're going to hook you up to Glide people and speak to talk with you about the next steps in that care journey for you, right? It also will allow you to preempt services. So let's say that you've got a stage one cancer diagnosis. You can start talking to about that, and then asking it, what to expect in your treatment plan, what to expect, how can you put together a recovery plan for a whole person, and the app will start writing you a care plan. That's what I do as a healthcare advocate. I write care plans to help people in recovery and help them navigate the care system. So now we have an app that can actually help you do that. And then not just write the care plan, but also direct you to the resources that can help you implement the care plan. So the other thing that was really important to me in Scroll was that the control of how those people learn about you is completely in your hands.
Okay.
So we deliver you a whole series. Let's say back to your knee replacement, right? That you need physical therapy. We'll introduce you to 3 or 4 different physical therapists. Here's their profiles. Here's their specialty. Maybe you need a sports guy, right? Here's
Yeah.
their specialty, and then you get to reach out to them. We never solicit your information to the providers. You're in control of who you're going to speak to.
Yeah.
So
The fact that you're giving the recommendations as well. But I recall in our last conversation, you mentioned 62 billion in care fraud in 2022,
I
and your mission is to weed out what we call the bad actors. So, what separates a vetted scroll care provider from someone you'd potentially maybe find on Google just randomly?
Well, hey, I'll give you an example. I had a guy that came on and he wanted to be a provider on Scroll. And we did a background on him and an international background as well, because we partner with Checker, who is the primary background service in the United States for anyone delivering services to your home. And then we have Middesk, which is an international company that looks at you outside of the US. And this guy had a direct tie to the Taliban, right?
Hmm. Wow.
We would have never known. How would we have
Yeah,
known?
yeah.
Right? So obviously he wasn't.
That's the extreme of extremes.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, it's real. It really happened. And I was just a little dumbstruck by it. I'm like, who would have known that? We ran it a second time because it was so unusual. But there are lots of bad actors. As I said, licensing requirements vary state to state in the US, right? I had a lady call me one time and she said, She was a dog walker, and she said, "I want to." I had a lady that I walked her dog who just got diagnosed with cancer, and I want to be a healthcare advocate, and I need you to tell me how to do it. And I was just like, "Well, I don't
Not
think we can do
the
that
easiest
with a phone
thing.
call,
Yeah.
right?" And and then she said, "Well, my client, that I walk her dog was diagnosed with like stage 3 ovarian cancer, and she asked me to be her advocate." And I said, "Well, I I don't know enough about her diagnosis, but I will tell you that what do you think advocacy really is, right? Because if you're a neighbor going with a neighbor and just being her companion, that's great. But if you're going to go in and get paid money to help advise her on her next steps in care and treatment, I would tell you that you don't learn that in a few hours,
Right.
right?" But what was so shocking to me when I got off of that call, Harry, was legally she absolutely could do that. And she could take money for doing that and spend $24 printing business cards and tell people she's a healthcare advocate and make money doing it. And it's like, it's pretty shocking when you consider that, right? So there's two objectives I have. One is to make certain that the care seeker is getting connected with, viable, credible,
Yeah.
licensed professionals. And number two, that the care providers that are really, really good, that are getting buried in the SEO channels, right? On big search engines, that we can elevate them and say, hey, there's a great healthcare advocate right in your neighborhood, right? That's licensed, has background, is fully, vetted, and that we could recommend to you, right? Not necessarily my company, but maybe you're in New Jersey, right? So that was part of my goal. It was kind of two-sided. One, make certain that the care seeker gets good care, quality care, and number two, make certain that the good care providers are also elevated into those levels, right? And that's really the mission of Scroll.
So it's kind of like a two-pronged approach then to make sure you're the right person for the right company. Uh,
I'm going to change the way people access care services. That's really what it's about. Like, how do we change how people access those services? And I believe Scroll is the answer to that.
and from the two things that pop to mind are you're making it easy, number one, and you're making it personalized as well, number two. So
Mm.
it's to the right person, the right provider, and it's an easy app to navigate.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before that you've got around 60 providers on the platform right now,
Yeah.
most from your personal network. What's the challenge in scaling that? These small providers, a lot of them are buried deep in Google. How do you specifically find them at the moment?
Um, Painfully. No, it's actually, it's really not that painful. We we can do AI is a beautiful thing because AI can do a lot of sweeping for us,
Yeah.
right? I can go into my chat. His name is Doug, my AI assistant, right? And we can go into Doug, and Doug is very, very trained on Scroll, and ask him. Let's say we're back to physical therapy, right? I want you to review the 30 zip codes between here and here, and I want you to tell me who the top 10 physical therapists are within those zip codes, right? Now at least we have those names, and give me the contact information. Now we have those names. Now we start reaching out, telling them about who we are, asking if they're interested. The first step, if they are interested, is they have to pass the background check,
Yeah.
right? And
Nice.
everyone, including myself, has been background checked. So everybody has to do it. So number one, you have to pass the background check. Once that happens, we start working in relationship with you to build out your profile and to start elevating you in the app. We do a lot of social media marketing and a lot of marketing for those individuals. So that's kind of how we find people.
Yeah, and I think you can take it, as I mentioned before, a step beyond by setting up a lead generation engine, but that's a conversation for another time. But what
Yeah.
one thing, given you're an expert within the field, and a lot of our conversation has been around AI from the last time we spoke as well, and you've spoken about today AI decoding medical bills, which I think is fantastic. You literally just pick it up, put it in, understand how much you should potentially be paying. So that's that first step. Personalized treatment plans by pulling from global medical journals. Um, Where do you see AI having the biggest impact in patient advocacy in the next 2 to 3 years?
Um, I really think that AI can replace a lot of patient advocacy at a at the more simple procedural levels.
Yeah.
So now, I don't propose in any way that you ever take humanity out of care because, we're all human beings. We want to be seen and heard, right? We want to, and when we're in crisis, we especially need to make certain that there's a human being coming alongside of that person and being supportive of them. But
Okay.
I do believe knowledge and empowerment in overall care for ourselves as a whole person, right? When we may hear of a dire diagnosis, right? You have cancer. But most people may not be aware of where the technology is in cancer treatment today, right? So now we have T cell therapies and we have other cancer therapies that's outside of that old, we're going to hit you with a bunch of different chemicals and see if we can burn the cancer out of your body, right?
Yeah.
There's technologies that have advanced through that, and you can even take some severe cancer diagnoses and treat it through T cell therapy. And T cell therapy is as simple as taking good cells out of your body or someone else's body, spinning them and reinserting them right into the cancer site and regenerating new cells. But people, most, Joe every guy doesn't even know that therapy exists, right? And then when they're in front of their doctor, they don't know what questions to ask.
Yeah.
They can educate you and empower you as a patient to be able to say, hey, would I be a candidate for T cell therapy, right? Would I be a candidate for this, type of replacement therapy, whatever it may be? Or, you know, here's another one that I have used a lot. Um, I think a question when you ask a question about therapies and treatment, if if they say, we have a I don't know, we have a 55% success rate, right? I mean, you have to do the math on the other side of that too,
Of
right?
course.
So, but most people don't. All they hear, because we're tuning in on information. I think we've become very myopic, and we're tuning on information. We may not be looking at the whole picture, right? I think that AI can assist with that. That you know, if you say I have this diagnosis, can you give me the upside and the downside of this diagnosis? AI can deliver that to you in seconds, right?
I
So
think that's a good way of doing it because sometimes AI can be a bit biased, or AI can aggregate data and churn you out one answer. Whereas I think looking at both ends of the spectrum gives you a better picture. And I see it as, particularly in your field, probably an education layer before you enter any conversation with a doctor.
yeah.
It's like, where do I stand? Okay, what are the possible outcomes? As you just said, upside, downside. I think it's a huge, huge way for people to upskill themselves before they make that first call. Um,
My goals are number one, enlighten people.
yeah,
Let Give them permission to be in agency, right? Give them permission to be their own advocate. Number two, to encourage them. And you do that through information and through making them feel empowered, right? The other one is educate them. If we show people, if the app can show you, here's the upside and downside, here's an educational piece, you are empowered to be able to go in and speak on your behalf, right? Or again, bring a loved one or a neighbor or someone, hey, this is what I do with every single client. We go to the doctor and it may be for the simplest procedure, maybe the simplest thing. I go in with a talk sheet. Here's the things we're going to talk about, doctor. I have a copy, the doctor gets a copy.
yeah,
We're on the same page immediately. And we don't have to sit there and try to figure out what we're going to talk about. Here's what we're going to talk about.
yeah.
And that doctor knows it coming into the room, what we're going to talk about, and is usually very prepared to have that discussion. So again, it's something I encourage people to do.
And look, I think that was going to be my final question, was going to be 5 years from now, if Scroll.care, actually, I'm still going to ask it because you might give another answer. And I have one more follow up after that. 5 years from now, if Scroll.care has achieved everything you're hoping for, what does that look like for families navigating care? So what does that world look like?
Yeah. I think peace of mind.
Yeah.
I complete, we tend to go into a room when there are doctors or lawyers or people that maybe have a different education than us, and we assume they're the smartest person in the room. Well,
Yeah.
they're not. You're the smartest person in the room because no one knows you like you do,
Yeah.
right? And so if I can empower people, if Scroll can empower people to represent themselves and in the best way that they can and feel completely confident in their representation, that will be a great
Amazing.
accomplishment.
And for anyone who's listening, who's overwhelmed, navigating care themselves or for a loved one, where should they start and where can they find Scroll.care?
Well, it's really I try to make it really simple. Scroll.care. That's our www.scroll.care. And you can reach out to me directly. I'm Renee at Scroll.care. So Renee at Scroll.care. Um, we have a pretty robust website, so you can jump on there. We are still in the build out phases here in Sacramento. My intention is that we will have funding by the end of Q1, quarter one, and then we'll start scaling that across the country. I can't wait to get to the UK so that I can actually physically come there and we'll meet and be able to demonstrate the app. But listen, anybody in your audience that wants to, it's free to care seekers.
Yeah.
So anyone in your audience that wants to jump on and give us feedback and tell us what you like and don't like, I am happy, elated to get that information and hear about that. You know, we're new. We just released it 1 year ago in the Sacramento market. We feel good about what we're doing here. We feel like we have some traction here, but we're excited about starting to scale and getting it across the nation. And then outside of the US, I have interest out of Australia. They've asked me to come there. I have interest in the Philippines. Someone in the Philippines is trying to buy it, right? They'd like to buy it there. So yeah. So my goal is that we'll see Scroll in multinational environments where it's serving people right at their culture, right where they need it. So it's
Well,
exciting.
let's get this going and let's scale. But look, Renee, it's been fantastic having you on. Such an amazing story and such an amazing, powerful message you're delivering with a product to back it up. So thank you very much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. God bless you and your audience. Have a great day.